All right. So from that session with Bren, uh, we talked about a lot of things. We talked about how we recently came through such a chaos from the full moon, and it was people were and experiencing, including myself and Bren, my granddaughter, random people in community, overwhelmed, overwhelming emotions, overwhelming in the nervous state, overwhelmed mentally processing, or even just physical overwhelmments from the environment, feeling like there was too much clutter, too much noise. And it was kind of one person that told me it was like everything came to an end or a head at the same time. Um, and so we kind of see this in the artwork. It really blocked in the blue, kind of started here, very much here is a ceiling, right? That atmosphere right here, winds coming in from the east, right? Bringing change, bringing in that new journey. And then at the bottom, this pond, which it has lilies on it, so very tranquil, right? Um, and then here where we have a little more strength or emotion or power surges into that blues and that greens and that yellow that came out into this beautiful flower. So that's how we kind of started, and it kind of brought it into this moment, which is why I think we felt so much chaos or overwhelming, or because everything was coming to a point to where it was ready for a transition, right? It was ready for a change, whether it was beginning or ending, coming to a head. It just all hit at once in that chaos section. And so let's talk about what came out in the painting. We'll talk about the stones and then the cards. So the blue coming in, right? Blue is all about throat chakra. It's about being able to voice, being able to communicate, communicating with self, as well as higher realms, divinity, and then actually being able to voice that. So we see all this blue, and we see coming down here in kind of this tornadic point. There's not a really swirl. It's more like when we have one of those microbursts where it just comes boom down, which is why I think we felt a lot of that chaos or overwhelming. Mine was nervous system overwhelming. Too much noise, um, too much going on in my environment to I was like, oh, whoa, and so being able to address each layer of why it was overwhelming, what was going on with those, and then deciding whether to release them, if I was done with them, deciding if I needed to do some more inner work or outer work on them, and then deciding how I wanted to respond with those. So I was going through what Bren calls pause. She has a great method on pause and she does workshops on it. But then deciding and for me, making choices. For me, it's all about the energy, right? Energy is always moving. It never ends, it just simply changes. And our power um, in how we are um, putting out that energy. What choices am I making? Because all of this is a choice point. How I choose to feel about something, how I choose to react or respond, how I choose to participate, how I choose to communicate. Those are all choices. And if I want to draw in certain things, then the choices that I make, the energy that I put out attracts the energy that I bring in. And then, am I open to receiving what I've called in? Am I open to receiving what I've been trying to manifest and actually letting it manifest in its physical form in this moment of now for me? Uh, so we see this real kind of impact coming in, and when I threw the stones, how they lined up along that. Um, so in this, we have pinks, right? Very much about our heart space, and this heart came out. And that in aligning with our spiritual aspect. So we see these purple here. We see it's like an echinacea flower. Echinacea is all about healing, right? And boosting our immune. So when we are bombarded with things, we can be true to ourselves and stay our course, if that is our choice. And then there's green in that because we have that healing, right? Being able to be in wellness spiritually, mentally, physically, and emotionally. Coming in over this way, and we have these winds coming in from the east, a wind of change, new opportunities, new ways of thinking and being. And it's in this section where this tree, and it seems to be an older tree, it's very outlined in black. One of the branches is reaching up in a hand shape, where hope is. And then in the other part where the leaves have already dropped off, and it says the word stone, let go, let it go. So the things that are no longer serving you, the emotions, thought patterns, relationships that are no longer serving, are no longer your fundamental truth, letting them go and releasing them, just like these kite strings have been released. So no longer trying to manhandle them physically, but releasing them and letting them go with love. Within this tree, we have, I feel like it's kind of like a Hecate, right? It's that winter time where we come in, um, just like animals and plants, right? We reserve our energy, we hibernate. In the seed, we're going to, or the bulb, we're going to kind of bring in all those nutrients. And it's a time for inner reflection, deciding who, when we step out in the spring again, we want to be, what we want our life to be. The same as the animals that are going to come out in rebirth, or the plants that are going to come out in rebirth. In the woman here in the tree, one eye is shut, right, in rest and repose, and the other one is open for that enlightenment. So very much that transition. In the coloring in there, we see the browns, right? So very grounding, right? Coming back to ground and earth, to with the blue of communication and higher realm, and then in the purple in divinity and spirituality, and coming into seeing who we want to be and where we want to go, and also releasing. It is a huge time of transition and release. Um, and like I said before, energy does not stop or die. It just simply changes. So if they were here in one form, we release them with love so that they can go on to their other form. And we come down here into the pond and into the flower here. And this came out with really yellow, right? So we have enlightenment. We have new ways of thinking, new thought patterns. And then it came in with the orange, right? Just on the edges. So that's going to come in. What do we want to manifest? What do we want to call in? It kind of had the feeling of lotus energy, but not that peacefulness. And then that tiger lily with these stamens here. So really coming out in veracity of energy, of really focusing in our intent and what we want life to be. When we let go, right, the things that are no longer serving, hope, we can, if we're open to receiving that in, and then coming into balance and wellness. And in this chaos, I do feel it's that wellness of spiritual, thinking, mental, emotional, physical, all realms of that, and coming into wellness and balance in a balanced state, and then coming from a heart space. And if you look close at this heart that came out, and if you watch the other video, you can see where it started coming up and then she started talking about it. I always love when that happens. It's like, oh, wow, I just saw that before you said it. But it's not just pink or green when we think about our chakra and our heart center. And I believe in a balance and duality. So it's not just pink, it's not just green, but it's a balance. And then sometimes when we're in service and healing or giving, or green, in that state, or more if we're really needing that self love or we need that self healing, we see more pink, or vice versa. It depends on you and how you see the energy. But there's always a balance, right? And balance is always moving. It's not stagnant, right? This is not balance. This is balance, because there's our times when we're called to give and serve. But if we're always giving in that relationship, it's not serving us, because then we are depleting. people can become codependent on that, and that's not serving them and it's not serving us. So letting those relationships go in a loving way, um, and letting them go on. And it doesn't mean that relationship won't realign as we go further down our path in enlightenment. It just means at this time, um, that's no longer serving for either of us, and I'm going to let it go in a loving way. And but in here we see purples and we see orange and we see yellow and we see green and we see blue, we see brown. So again, it's all coming in wellness in balance from a heart state. So that um, we're coming from our own truth. We are walking in our own path, and we are giving and receiving in abundance, in a healthy state. And so down here, we'll talk about these lotus blossoms. And if you know about the lotus blossom, every evening it goes down into the mud, right? Does that inner work. It rejuvenates itself, and then it comes back out into this beautiful, peaceful lily that floats gently on the water. So when we come inward and we do that inner work and we rest and repose, then we have the ability to come back out into that sunshine, into that calm and stillness, of a well and balanced state. So let's talk about the stones that were thrown, and they're very much in this alignment state. The first one we come to is the subtle light, which is about your throat chakra, right? It's about communication, being able to voice your wants and needs, being able to voice your truth, in a loving manner, in a manner that can be received. And that's a choice point, because even not only just the communication outward, but what communication are you receiving in? Have you already have a preconceived notion of what that person is going to tell you? And so it doesn't matter what they say, you're only going to hear what you've already preconceived them that they're going to say. So giving that pause and actually listening to what they're saying and asking those curious questions to make sure that you're understanding, and then making the decision mentally, emotionally, and physically and spiritually on how you decide to interact with that person. Um, so it's not only communicating with yourself, but it's also how you're communicating outward and how you're then perceiving that communication. Then we come into this one, the Celestine. So this is again about communicating with your higher self, God, all that is in the oneness. So then the inner communication, the voicing or expressing of that communication, and then aligning with what you believe spiritually, and communicating to the higher self in with this physical self, and coming into alignment with that in a loving relationship. Then we come up to the copper, which is energizing. It's anti-inflammatory. We see it in copper bracelets. We see it in socks. We see it in all kinds of things to reduce that inflammation, right? Letting the things get out of the way so we're not bound up in the same emotional response or physical response, mental response, whatever. But we're clearing that away. So then that positive energy can flow up. So it's supporting that. We do have a quartz here that's kind of a multifaceted conglomerate that is from heart, focusing in on that positive energy so we can move upward and onward. And then we come into another one. This is a pyramid crystal. Again, it's that focus, right? Where we can charge this with our intent and thought. When we've done that inside of who we want to be, gone to our zero space, understanding what we actually want to bring forth, focus and energizing that. And we can see this one's focused in, again, kind of let it go, heart space, focusing in on then that movement upward. Spirituality, healthy spirituality in harmony with relationship in our divinity. Comes into the rose quartz, which is all about relationship and heart. And it's not romantic, and it can be your partner, your family, your friends, your community, yourself, higher spirit. And it's that strength in that relationship and the love of that relationship and self love and the love that you give to others in community coming into alignment with your beliefs. And then we come into this one, and oh, name just went right out of my head. Oh, the euconite, inner harmony, right? So we've had the communication, we've energized it, we focused it, we made sure that the relationship is strong, and now we're coming into another round of inner harmony and inner peace. Definitely some clearing going on there. It's also, and it's kind of bringing in this way from this hope stone, bringing it into personal freedom, right? You can be whoever you want to be, and the choice is yours. It all stems from how you decide to interact, how you decide to respond, um, whether you want to let relationships, patterns, just because that you always feel that way when someone says that or someone does something, or you keep ending up in the same relationships, whether work or friends or romantic. You have a choice on how you decide to feel that. So coming back and taking that pause. Do I feel that way because I've always felt that way? I always attract the same person. And taking that pause to decide, okay, I'm going to make a change, right? I'm not going to interact that way anymore. I'm going to work on those emotions, and I'm not going to feel that way anymore. I don't want to be in that drama. So it's a choice point so that you can be whoever you want to be. And this helps bring that in. It's about creative and original thinking, and bringing those vibrations in, release of inner conflict, right? Having that communication with yourself and what are your truths, right? Just because they were your foundation from childhood, are they still your truths now, or are they somebody else's? And is it time to release them, or is it time to embrace them? And then old negative ways, right? So we've clarified our thoughts, we've energized, and we can make positive things, and then getting rid of those old negative cycles that we've played in. And that is a choice. You can stay and play in them. That's your choice if that's what you want. Or if you want to change them, now is the time to go ahead and do that. And it's very much about changing how you look at life, right? Here's the situation, step out of it, and then perceive it from another perspective and another perspective and another perspective, and then decide what you want to do with that situation. Brings us up here to the Celestine, which this is all about higher realms. It's the angelic realms, communication with that. So we've done this communication with ourselves. We've taken it up to divinity, and having that communication, and then the spiritual realm and are the angelic realm, and that's this here, and you can see a host coming in here, coming in that overlooking view of how we're then communicating, living, because when our vibration is higher, when our thoughts are higher, when we're coming from our heart space, and that is where we're providing service from, and then we are actually living and vibrating in that higher vibration of that angelic realm. And then we come, and it's kind of hard to see on the dark cloth is a really dark amethyst. Amethyst, again, is that higher spiritual vibration, healing spirit, positive energy, re-energizing. We're coming into the spot where we're coming in to be re-energized and come out again. And then harmony, coming into alignment and harmony, right? Letting it go, living from the heart space, and being in wellness in all manners of our life. Let's look at the two cards. So the first one was the kiss, and it wasn't It's honoring, right? Showing respect. I really liked it. We kiss to express respect, right? Solidarity, brotherhood in joining together. Kissing families and friends. It's a greeting expression of kinship and friendship. Union of linking the spirit and the bodies together. If we're thinking a more romantic kiss, symbolizing of life-giving power, a union of spirit and matter. I really like that thought of spirit and matter. It's when we're taking our spiritual alignments and belief and our physical and how we're bringing those together and uniting them to actually live the life, manifest and accept the abundance of the universe that is offering you. Because even if you're calling it in, if you're not um, deeming yourself worthy because of unfounded beliefs, um, it can be right there. But if you're not open to receiving it and and having the belief that yes, the universe, higher self, God is providing this for you and you are worthy of receiving that, it just keeps flowing around you. So a choice point again. And then to the arrow, it's that momentum, right? Momentum, a momentum of focusing that energy and determined. Be determined and decisive. If it no longer serves you, making the decision and letting that go, a huge weight being lifted off your back. And sometimes those decisions are really hard. And I understand it. I've made them myself. But once the decision is made, even though the emotional part may still be hard to work through, that release and untying of that weight and burden is amazing. So take pause and think about it. Is this still serving? Is it not? Is it time to let go? Is it time to let it transition in a loving way? Energy does not stop or die. And that's the energy of anything, relationships, people, plants. It just simply transforms onto its next thing. So I hope that you enjoyed this, brought you insight, understanding, uh, in whatever moment of now that you're in that you've stumbled across this reading. I'm Marcia, and this is an energetic reading of the moment. What I do is channel, I open up. This is how I perceived the energy at that time. I paint it, I draw it. Sometimes it's words from whatever I see, hear, smell, taste sometimes. Uh, Sometimes I layer in the stones or the wood stones or add cards. And then once this portion of the art is done, the reading is provided and the artwork is always yours to keep. Though I do